This is your Daily MoJo Extra.
Stewart Rhodes, welcome to the Daily MoJo. What's your opinion? Do you think we should stay on daylight saving time or get rid of the whole switcheroo?
Yeah, I think we should get rid of it.
So stay on what we're on right now, which makes it lighter later in the evening. Technically.
Oh, for daylight? I don't care. I really don't.
And he's probably like 90% of the world. They don't care.
I was on your side. I was on your side right up until that point, and now I don't know that we can be friends. All right, so
right?
For those of you, right, you are. I mean, that's. I think it's obvious. Stewart is the. You were the founder of the Oath Keepers, correct?
That's right. That's correct. Yeah.
And you were sentenced. You were actually given a longer sentence, but just by a couple of months, than a friend of mine who is currently serving in federal prison for, I think it's bankruptcy fraud. He was given the longest sentence ever handed down to an individual, 17 years, and I think it was 8 months. You were given 18 years in prison for seditious conspiracy. That was the final conviction, correct?
Yeah, in the Moscow of D.C. under Biden, it's like being tried in the Soviet Union. If you're tried there, you become guilty, of course.
Yeah, this whole thing has been an absolute fustercluck from the beginning. I want to get into the seditious conspiracy thing, but first I want to start at the very beginning, because I think there's some misconceptions out there about what the Oath Keepers is. Tell me what the Oath Keepers is and why you founded it.
So what Oath Keepers was from the very beginning in 2009 when I started it was simply an association of both current serving and former military and police, firefighters, EMT, search and rescue. Those people that would be given orders that could violate your rights, like during the COVID lockdown, we saw this, right? But back then in 2009, the big example people used, rightly so, was the gun confiscation after Hurricane Katrina, when you had police officers who were brought in from all over the country to help, wound up obeying unconstitutional orders to disarm everybody, including peaceful citizens, given by the mayor and the police chief. It was a big wake-up call that police officers in this country are not taught enough about the Constitution. I mean, that order was later on ruled unconstitutional by a court, but problem is, it didn't help people on the ground. So you want people to think about what they're being told to do at the moment, which they have a responsibility to do. We understood that in the military. So it's the same thing here in civilian life. We're dealing with the Bill of Rights.
So there was nothing, because every time we ever looked up, when the Oath Keepers came to the forefront after, I think January 6th was the first time I had heard. Is there another organization out there called the Oath Keepers, or is that the Oath Promise? That was Promise Keepers. Sorry.
That's a totally different thing. All right. Yeah, that was a Christian men's group.
But
no, this is focused on the oath we swore to defend the Constitution.
Brad, didn't we hear about Oath Keepers and Proud Boys during one of the Biden-Trump debates at some point? Or was that after?
That was after. Huh? No, that was the Proud Boys. You're talking about the debate where they tried to get at President Trump by saying, what about these Proud Boys? Right. And he said, what I say to the Proud Boys is, stand by and stand down and stand by, something like that.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and then they made a big deal out of that. Look, the Proud Boys, we've worked with them before across the country to provide security. A lot of times, they have a different way of doing things, like they go out there and street fight against Antifa. We don't do that. We just protect the venue, protect the person we're tasked with protecting. We're very successful.
So you were basically bodyguards, right, Stewart? Is that what you?
Yeah, sure, but volunteer bodyguards. Like, for example, in Ferguson, Missouri, we jumped on the rooftops to protect a block of businesses after a black bakery owner. She runs a place called Natalie's Cakes and More. She asked for help because the looters and rioters had broken her windows and had said they're coming back that night to burn the entire block down. And so we posted up with rifles on the rooftops as volunteers. She can't afford private security. A big corporation, some rich person can hire whatever the newest version is of Blackwater. So but the average small store owner can't. So we would do volunteer security for free speech events for businesses, all across the country.
But wait, she was a black business owner. I read everywhere Oath Keepers are racists. And wait, are you saying you're not racist?
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. It's the same crap that they throw at the entire MAGA movement, right? They want to say, they insinuate
Yeah.
or even directly say that they're all a bunch of Nazis and white supremacists and anti-Semitics, and they throw all these labels at you because that's all they've got. That's all the left can do now is do the false projection. They project onto us what they're actually doing themselves. That's all they have though.
We looked up just about everywhere. I mean, we used the power of the interwebs to find any evidence that the Oath Keepers and or Proud Boys were racist organizations, that they were anything other than what they were saying that they were, that y'all were saying what you were, and we couldn't find it. I mean, it was
No.
certainly not findable if in fact it was true, which we know it wasn't true. So I think what was happening at that time, we were aware of fake news. But I think the general public hadn't yet caught on to the real depth of the fake news and what they were willing to do, which was just flat out lie about people and organizations as the press arm of the Democrat Party and of
Yeah.
the DC swamp too, because it's not just the Democrats. There are Republicans up there in leadership that are just as scummy as the Democrats, the uniparty in D.C. Have
Yeah,
you not seen that?
exactly. Oh, absolutely right. I mean, I used to work for Ron Paul in DC. I got my DC experience back then in 1998, 99, and it was obvious back then. And it's the same crap today. Like you said, it is the uniparty, and that's the problem. Is they're deeply entrenched in every branch of our government. You call it permanent Washington. The staff members in Congress, for example,
Mm-hmm.
the staffs really run Congress. It's for a lot of the representatives, a lot of them are just figureheads. They're kind of like Joe Biden was, right? Got the auto pen going.
Yeah.
So just letting you know, this permanent Washington is also in the congressional staffs too. It's not just the bureaucracy that people think about it in three-letter agency.
Well, and that's what we're seeing. That's why I think the outcry over Doge, which is what I call it, not Doge, that's the crypto. But that's why we're seeing all these people lose their effing minds in D.C. because of Doge, because a lot of the institutions and a lot of the tools that the deep state, permanent D.C., has been using all of these years are now being dismantled by the Trump administration, and
Well,
they're
it's
panicked.
little fiefdoms. Each one of them is a little
Mhm.
fiefdom. Look at it that way. I mean, so I would say there's the nefarious, organized, deep state. I consider CIA at the heart of that, of the Federal Reserve too. But the more mundane version of it is all these bureaucrats in Washington D.C. that are ladder climbers or staff members in any of the branches, law clerks, you know, congressional staff. All of them are ladder climbers trying to get more and more power and position, prestige, and money. And so, they have little fiefdoms they develop with professional staff members. They can go from a Democrat office to a Republican office because they're doing the same function. So they're working for the same people. So just let you know that permanent Washington and the staffs is a big problem. It really is.
You are a Yale graduate, right?
Right, Yale Law School. That's correct.
So are you a lawyer?
No,
Technically?
I'm not. I'm a recovering lawyer.
I was going to say.
Yeah, I think
Because that was going to be
I
another
lost my
deal
faith.
breaker. I mean,
Right. Yeah, I've lost my faith in our legal system, and frankly, that was before this experience. This experience really put the icing on the cake, though, as far as how corrupt and compromised our entire system really is. It's bad. It really is very bad.
well, that's what does Peter Schwartz call it? The legal industry. The legal
You call it
industry,
the
because that's what
legal
it is.
legal industrial complex. You call it that if you want. Um,
Yeah.
like with prison in general, once you're indicted, and the indictment happens in front of a grand jury that you don't even know exists, they don't get a chance to hear from you. You can't cross-examine any of the witnesses or evidence, or I mean, or present your own evidence on your own behalf. So this is the problem with the grand jury in the first place. It's like the old saying, grand jury will indict a ham sandwich. So you're starting already once they indict you, like in my experience, I had nothing but speeding tickets as my priors. But once I was arrested, I was put in solitary confinement and denied pretrial release, bond. twice. So I had two different hearings for pretrial release, and they really gave no excuse for holding me pretrial. It wasn't a flight risk. I'd been out it was a year after J6. I've been living in the community, living here in Texas, just fine for an entire year. So how could they prove any kind of imminent harm to the public, right? They did it anyway. So it's letting you know the judges do what they want, and once you're on that conveyor belt, once you're indicted and arrested, it's very likely you'll stay in that system, and from there forward, every day is a grind, trying to crush you down, trying to break your spirits.
And that's so far, that's what we've heard from everybody that we've talked to regarding their January 6th experience, is that once you're in that system, it's a grinder, and it is just, woof.
Hey, Stewart,
and don't get excited.
Stewart, real quick, before we leave this topic, only because I've been a part of one of your interviews before, explain your solitary confinement
before we get in that, can we get to? I want to go. I want to start with the experience first, the January 6th, what happened, and then we can go through the entire your entire experience within the jail. But tell me first about January 6th, and what happened that day. Why were you in D.C.?
So we were there to do security for volunteer security for two permitted events on Capitol grounds. One was a rally by Latinos for Trump, and the other one was the rally by Ali Alexander, where members of Congress were going to speak that day. So, and this is what we had done in D.C. 9 prior times. And in fact, we had been part of volunteer security for events and for people in November and December of 2020 for the big protest rallies over the election. And so J6 was very much the same. And each one of those rallies, people marched from Freedom Plaza or from down by the Ellipse up to the Capitol, and then attended events that were permitted around the Capitol. Happened every time. And J6 was the same. So, when the media and the deep state spins it as, oh, Trump supporters were at the Ellipse, they're supposed to stay there, they had no reason to go near the Capitol, and suddenly he told them all to go there, that's just complete nonsense. We were already planning on being at permitted events all around the Capitol. And we were there to protect two of those, as well as personal security details for Roger Stone was one detail, and the other detail was Ali Alexander's speakers and himself, who were down at the Ellipse at Trump's rally, and to protect them in the VIP section there, and then walk them up to the Capitol to attend their own event after that.
Mm-hmm. So the events of that day, obviously, they started getting out of hand at some point when people had gotten down to the Capitol area. We've seen the people breaking the windows. We've seen the skirmishes between police and citizens there. What was the first thing you saw that day that maybe piqued your spidey sense and you thought something's not right? Was it that day? Did you have any idea that things were going to kind of go sideways before that? What was it that kind of set all that in motion that you saw?
No, there's no there was no reason to believe it would be any different than any of the two other events we had in November and December. We had permitted events around the Capitol. What was different on J6 is that I think what happened in J6 is simply that people were already going to be going to the Capitol to protest, and then that was taken advantage of and manipulated by the powers that be that want to make sure that they stop the challenges to the electoral slates and stop the possibility of sending those slates back to the states. So it was designed. I mean, J6 is a wag the dog to cover what they were doing. They stole the election. It was not just fraudulent; it was also illegal and unconstitutional. Yeah, you had multiple violations of state election laws all across the country, blatant violations in the name of COVID-19. But there were still violations of state law, which triggered a violation of Article 2, which mandates that only the legislature can determine for the manner for selecting electors, not some unelected bureaucrat or some judge. So that was the crisis that we were in, a constitutional crisis. But to deflect attention away from what they had done, with their own crimes, they created a false, like a Reichstag fire moment. They could say, "Oh, look, here's the assault on a democracy." Like I said, it's classic projection. They're accusing us of what they're doing. They pulled a coup, so they accuse us of trying to pull a coup. So, and it's the same thing we saw in Brazil and other countries, right? Same kind of stuff. So
Right.
that's what they're doing. Is the big picture is they want to cover and divert attention from what they did, but the other one is stop Trump. They wanted to make him disqualified under the 14th Amendment from being able to hold office again, or indict him and put him in prison, or try and put him in prison, which they wanted to do, or just make him completely unelectable. That's what they're thinking. So that was all about making him unable to serve in office again. And so they picked out Oath Keepers and Proud Boys as the two fall groups they could use to say, look here, look at these dangerous groups. There really was a plot and a plan, and then put Trump right at the top of it as the kingpins. One big massive false conspiracy charge with Trump cast as like the mob boss kingpin. Chario and I cast as his lieutenants in our organizations as his shock troops. That's the whole narrative is that's what, and it's a false narrative. It's entirely ridiculous, but they use that narrative to try to stop Trump. It didn't work though, obviously. Thank God.
No, it didn't. It backfired spectacularly right in their face. Do you
That's
think
right.
that there were? Do you think that there were? Did people infiltrate your organization? Did you have
Oh,
any
beyond a doubt. Yeah, I
dissenters?
mean,
What
a
happened?
key
Tell me
witness I
about
was
that.
going to call at trial turned out to be an FBI informant. So one of my own, a guy that had been I can't, that's right, I'm under a gag order. I can't even talk about it. I forgot about that. I'm still under a gag order by the judge that I can't discuss the identity of the confidential informant in my organization. But the New York Times outed this person, so it's already out there. I don't want to have a chance of, I want to give Meta a
I,
chance to put me back in jail. So.
I don't blame you. So you said you had you left D.C. that day. You went home. It was, what did you say, a year before
Yeah, a
they
year after
you had any
it was.
idea?
No, I mean, other Oath Keepers were being arrested. The guys that had gone in were being arrested and charged and arrested. So that was already
Mhm.
going on. And so, and I was listed as person one in the indictments. I knew they were going to come after me eventually. But it took them a whole year though to go cook up coerced testimony by threatening people with life in prison. They coerced a couple of our members to dishonor themselves and plea it out to seditious conspiracy, and then agree to sign just a stack of lies that said that I had planned since November to attack the Capitol on January 6th. It was just a stack of lies. So these guys sold out, agreed to stack of lies, and that's when they arrested me after that. So,
Wow.
because I didn't go inside the
Um,
Capitol, I didn't touch anybody that day. I was just exercising my free speech and my right to, for association. And here's the thing: the Oath Keepers that went in the Capitol didn't commit any crimes either. They just wandered in 20 minutes after Congress had already recessed, and they wandered in through doors that were opened by somebody else on the east side, from the inside. And on the east side, it was quiet. It was pretty. I mean, people were yelling and cheering and singing songs, but there was no violence. It's just really pretty calm. Everyone's just standing on the steps singing patriotic songs, and then the doors pop open. So I mean, I wasn't there. I didn't see that because I was at the north end of the Capitol trying to locate my security teams near where the event was supposed to be held that day. Ali Alexander's event. So I was over there looking for the guys. I had no idea anyone had gone inside. So they went inside, and this is what I found out after the fact. They went inside, did a prayer circle, and then they helped police officers. So Harry Dunn was the big black police officer, had been paraded all over the place in the media. But on that day, he was very agitated and he had an M4 rifle in his hands. And he was just, screaming, yelling at Trump supporters that he was going to kill them all this kind of stuff. He already kind of crossed the line. Our guy saw him all hyped up, arguing and yelling at people, and then it got in between him and a group of Trump supporters, and they de-escalated the situation, put their back to Harry Dunn, the officer, put their hands up towards the Trump supporters, and just kind of calmed everyone down. I think they might have averted a horrific tragedy, even worse than Ashley Babbitt being murdered. It's a possibility if Harry Dunn opened up on the crowd. So Harry Dunn admitted later in his first 302 to the FBI that the Oath Keepers had helped him. But then they put him on the stand, and to fix that problem, they had him say, "Oh, that was actually
mhm.
some other group that helped me. I got them confused with somebody else. It wasn't the Oath Keepers that helped me." And then they lied, and he and an officer Lazarus, who was on Pelosi's personal security detail, they both lied and said they were together, and there was a potentially violent confrontation with the Oath Keepers. And they both backed each other up in this false story. So that was later on discovered to be perjury because Mike Baker from Blaze Media found a video of Lazarus in the tunnels under the Senate at that time. He couldn't have been with Harry Dunn. So both of them are now caught
Mhm.
committing perjury red-handed on the stand. So the point is, though, is that our guys actually help the police inside, but they want to cover and switch the script on that and make it sound like, they didn't help anybody and they were threatening. And their presence in the Capitol, that's what it came down to at the end. All the nonsense about we organized it, there was no evidence of any plan, all the nonsense that the Oath Keepers were the tip of the spear and breached the Capitol and led the attack. All that was exposed as nonsense because our guys went in 20 minutes later. At the end, all they said to the jury was, "Oh, their presence inside the Capitol furthered the delay of the reconvening. Even though Congress is already gone, we can say these guys contributed to the delay." That's what they charge a lot of people with. All the people charged with parading and being on restricted grounds.
Hmm.
A lot of them have the same allegation. Oh, your mere presence outside helped delay Congress. We're going to hit you with obstruction of official proceeding. So anyway, the narrative there turned into simply, oh, the jury can infer an implied conspiracy, an unspoken conspiracy to have been formed at the moment the Oath Keepers were walking up the steps. So while they're walking up the steps, they have a silent meeting of the minds and commit seditious conspiracy as they walk up the steps. That's how ridiculous it really got to
Oh,
be at the end. And the jury was invited to use our speech, our free speech, as state of mind evidence to support a conviction.
I want to get into the seditious conspiracy thing here. Just so I got to take a quick break. I wanted to tell you we do have a nickname for Harry Dunn here on the Daily MoJo.
What's
Ron,
that?
you remember what our nickname for him?
I don't remember.
He's a pussy. He's a pussy. That's generally when we
Nice.
refer to Harry Dunn. So, all right, quick break. Back with more Stewart Rhodes here in a second on the Daily MoJo.
If you're offended, you're listening wrong. The Daily Mojo.
Over in the Rumble chat room, Bob Teagarden says, I'm banned from Facebook right now because I mentioned Oath Keepers. They classified them as a dangerous organization. F Facebook and their bans. Stewart Rhodes is a patriot and a hero.
He is.
So, got some fans over there in the Rumble chat room and in the Daily Mojo chat room. Dr. Zoe Knows says, Stewart looks like a movie bad guy.
He does kind of look like a movie
hat.
bad guy.
It's the hat and the patch.
That's right. Yeah.
Stuart Rhodes is our guest this morning. He is the founder of the Oath Keepers. They were in D.C. on January 6th. He was convicted and sentenced to 18 years for seditious conspiracy. I want to define it. This is, according to AI, this is what seditious conspiracy is. A seditious conspiracy is a crime that involves plotting against the authority of a state. It's a type of sedition, which is behavior that incites rebellion against the established order. How does it differ from treason? Seditious conspiracy is considered a serious crime, but less severe than treason. It targets activities that undermine the state without directly attacking it. What does sedition include? Speech, organization, subverting a constitution, inciting discontent toward authority, and insurrection against authority. Which, if that's the case, then everyone here at this program is a seditionist. So,
Yeah,
and we are all technically conspiring.
That's how it's being used. So this is a bad statute. So this is a law passed during the Civil War when the Lincoln administration didn't want to mess with the treason clause, because the treason clause, for treason, you got to have two witnesses of the same overt act or confession in open court. So you have extra evidentiary burdens if you charge someone with treason. So they passed a statute that has no act element. It just simply says if you find that two or more people agreed, had a meeting of the minds to resist with force the authority of the United States government, you may find them guilty of seditious conspiracy. That was written during the Civil War. And so, the problem with that, of course, is there's no act element. It's also, well, what does that mean? When you say,
Right.
agree to resist with force. So if I advocate for a militia, if I form a militia, if I say, for my cold dead hands, and my buddy says, yes, I agree with that, is that right there coming to an agreement to resist with force the authority of the United States government? See, it's very easy for it to be used which is what it was used for, to suppress free speech. So they used it to attack us, to demonize being a MAGA supporter, to demonize being anyone who stands up. All of that was used to further that suppression, and it worked for a lot of people. You had a lot of people running scared when we were all indicted for seditious conspiracy. You had a lot of people running scared and unafraid to even speak their minds.
First of all, was Lincoln a tyrant?
Yeah, he
in your
was.
opinion?
He really was. Absolutely. Hey, look, if any president, I don't care what their excuse is, violates the Constitution grossly, then yes. Like, for example, I wrote my paper, one of my major research paper at Yale Law School was about the use of enemy combatant status by Lincoln, the use of the laws of war against Northern citizens. And I was talking about that because that's what was going on in the War on Terror. They're saying, even a U.S. citizen can be whisked away to a military brig, no grand jury indictment, no right to a jury trial. As good as our system is, it's even worse than the military system. But the assertion is that your citizenship doesn't matter. You don't have any rights if you're accused of being a terrorist, right? In the war on terror. So I look back at the history of this, and it started with Lincoln. So yes, he grossly violated the Constitution. He held like 15,000 Northerners for extended periods, even years, in military detention, and then he tried about 5,000 of them by military tribunal, and that was ruled unconstitutional in 1866 by the Supreme Court, retrospect, in a case called Ex parte Milligan, where a guy who was living in the North was held in military detention and then put on trial and sentenced to death. He appealed in the court. This is a decision after the war, after the emergency is over. We tend to set aside the Constitution during emergencies. We have a bad history with that. But this was a case where
Right.
the court ruled on it after the war was over. So they put the genie back in the bottle and said that was unconstitutional. Lincoln should not have done that. So yeah, Supreme Court of the United States ruled that he had violated the Constitution for years.
See, it's funny because again, after the past probably 10 years, I've gone back and rethought everything I was ever taught in school. And it was, we were never taught they whitewashed, they spit polished Lincoln's
Yeah,
legacy over the years, and we were never taught, the what he did, the bad parts of what he did. It was only the good stuff, and
right.
that's why education is obviously so important.
Same for
All
FDR.
right, so
And people brush under the rug the Japanese
mhm.
internment that he did. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I was in high school, we would go skiing at Mammoth Mountain in California, and we drove by Manzanar every time. And it never really hit us, the gravity of that situation back then. It was the late 70s, early 80s. But when you rethink all that stuff, it's like, man, how did any of this happen in the United States? How the hell were you people treated so badly in the United States of America? Your experience in the DC gulag, once they got you in there, what was that like? What was your first taste of when they took you in and didn't let you out? What happened from that point
Well,
onward?
that was first in Texas. So for the moment I was arrested, see, the feds use local jails as like contract holding facilities for the feds. So I was arrested by an FBI agent. They rifles pointed out at me where I was living. Came out the door and they arrested me. But from that day on, I was in solitary confinement. So they do local jails will do whatever the U.S. Marshals tell them to do, and the U.S. Marshals do whatever the DOJ tells them to do. So I was held in solitary confinement for my first hour of arrest, and that's where I stayed for over a year. So all during
Wow.
pre-trial, during my trial, which makes it much more difficult to defend yourself, and then even after my trial, I was in solitary confinement. And I was held in Texas for briefly, and then Oklahoma for 2 months at a place called Cimarron, like a big federal transit facility. And then they flew me to
Mhm.
Virginia or landed in Pennsylvania, took a bus to Virginia. So one up in Virginia at the Alexandria jail there, which they use for contract detention for the feds. And I was in solitary from that moment on at that jail all the way through my trial. That's where I was. So I didn't go to CTF. I didn't go
What
to the DC jail till after I was convicted. That's when I finally was able to go to because they didn't want me. The judge would not let me go to the CTF in the DC jail with all the other guys. They didn't want me with my
the
co-defendants. They
CTF
didn't want me in
is?
there. I forgot
What
what it
is the
stands for.
CTF?
It's the wing. It's the wing of the DC jail where they have all the
Okay,
J6 defendants. So
it's a
I
wing
would
of
have
the.
I
All
would
right.
prefer to have been there because it was like 20 guys, 25 guys, all J6s. That would have been fantastic. But they didn't want me with them, and that seriously changed my trial because I couldn't communicate with my co-defendants except for when we're being brought in shackles to the basement of the courthouse. They could talk to each other because they're all in the CTF, but I couldn't talk to them. And they got to see a lot more discovery than I did. All of them got to get access to all the videos whenever they want to watch it. I had zero access at the Alexandria jail to look at any of my discovery. I had to get in a van, with, handcuffed and chained up and everything, driven into DC, into the basement of the district court, and then only there would they hand me a laptop to look at. Made it very inconvenient for me, and I had zero access to a law library. I couldn't look up any case law, couldn't do any of my own legal research at all the entire time.
Did you represent
how can I
yourself?
aid my defense? What's that?
Did you represent yourself? Did you have an attorney?
No, I had attorneys that were paid by Sydney Powell out of Texas. And, really grateful for her for doing that.
Mhm.
So I really appreciate it. So I had
But
two
your
lawyers come in from Texas.
your access to them, was it limited?
Well, sure. I'm in solitary confinement, so it's more difficult. I can't just call them. I got to wait till I get out of my unit or out of my cell for my, we had 22 and 2 lockdown. So 2 hours a day, like myself and one other guy were let out to walk around in our little unit. You're not going outside or anything, but you can walk up and down the stairs, take a shower, use the phones, use the microwave, and watch the TV for 2 hours. And then you're put back in your cell, and 2 other guys are let out. That's a cycle in solitary, 22 and 2. The rest of the time you're in a cell by yourself.
What's the cell look
But yeah,
like?
of course. I mean, it's
Just
much more
describe
difficult
what
to defend
you.
myself. Right. I mean, it made it more
Sure.
difficult for me to aid my attorneys in my own defense. Absolutely. And why would they not want to do that to a Yale Law graduate, right? They don't want that guy jumping in there and looking at case law and looking at motions
Mhm.
and on briefs. They don't want that. Make it very difficult for you.
What describe your cell? What does it look like when you're in solitary confinement? How big is it?
Picture being locked in your bathroom for 22 hours before you're let back out for 2 hours, and then you get right back in and locked in your bathroom again. It's like that because you're living in a
Right.
little small 9x6 concrete box with a toilet and a concrete slab for a bed, and they give you a little thin mattress pad. But that's your room. That's it, and that's where you are. That's where you are, except for those 2 hours you're allowed to go take a shower and use the phones. So that's when you do all your legal research, I guess, or all your calling of your attorneys is after you've showered. Then you get on the phones, whatever time you have left, and do what you can in that little small window. That's how it went.
Did, did you have
Now
books,
they could have
paper,
I could get
pencils?
attorney visit. They would bring me out for attorney visits or phone calls. But I'm just saying, as far as me being able to be proactive and jump up and go do something, I just not able to do that.
Mhm.
Yeah, a little small window it could be at 1 o'clock in the morning. My 2 hour break might be at 1 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning. So you just don't guarantee you're going to have business hours.
Wow. So did you have what did you have in there with you? Did they do you get to have paper, books,
Yeah, so I had
pencils,
some, I had some,
anything?
I had some books. Yes, I had books that were mailed to me by people, and then I had, they have some books in the every prison's got a book rack. So thankfully, guys circulate
Mhm.
books. I had a Bible, so I read my Bible a lot. I read Tolstoy, and I sat down and read a lot of long novels. I read the Count of Monte Cristo. Just read a lot of the classics that they had on hand there. Yeah.
Did you read? Is it War and Peace? Is that the longest book that has ever been written?
It might
Did you
be.
read that?
I didn't read that one. I ran Anna Koronova, the tragic tale of a woman, who becomes obsessed with a guy who doesn't really love her. Blah blah blah. It was a
Right.
good book actually,
Right.
but it had a bad ending. It was dark.
Yeah.
I guess Tolstoy is very dark.
Uh, yeah. Yeah. Yes, I would agree. All right. So you're in solitary. You can't communicate with your lawyers on a regular basis. They're doing everything to make sure that you do
I
not
can't just
have
jump up and
access.
call. Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Only have access
You
to the
don't have
phones
access
at a
to a
certain
good
time.
defense, which is a
Well, it made it
constitutionally
much more
guaranteed
difficult.
right that you have of defense, that you are able to actually mount your own your defense, and
Right, right.
they didn't allow you to do that.
Oh,
That's
they
crazy.
made it. Well, like I said, I'm a Yale Law graduate, but I can't jump on and look up any case law. Like at every prison,
Right.
that they have a law library, right? And guys are in there, and whether they have a lawyer or not, they have a right to access that system to look up, case law and try to defend themselves. But yeah, here, oh, COVID was the excuse. Oh, the law library shut down because of COVID. We haven't opened it back up yet. Okay, so that's it. No access to legal research for me. So I think that was done intentionally. Um,
I was going to say, do
I
you
think
think COVID
absolutely
was
intentionally.
created to cause what we went through, or do you think they simply took advantage of COVID
No,
to use it as a wedge?
frankly, I lean towards. I think it was a pandemic that was meant to be used around the world for the Great Reset. Right? They told us what they were doing.
Hmm.
So I think that was a big part of what they were doing. But the big one, of course, was stopping Trump, and all that coincided. And they hoped to have a reset for the establishment around the world to stop all these populist uprisings that were happening. It didn't work. We still have a populist uprising across the globe. It's not just here in the United States. This is a global fight. It's the people of the world versus the elites who look at them as cattle. That's how the elites see us.
Yeah,
So
no
that's
doubt,
the fight.
no
In
doubt.
fact, while I'm in solitary confinement in 2022, I think it was about May or so, I'm listening to the radio, a small radio to listen to also. I listen to talk radio, and they happen to play a speech in a question and answer period being given by Clarence Thomas at an event in Texas. So I listened to that, and Clarence
Mhm.
Thomas, during that question and answer period, he just said that. He said, "Hey, this is a fight between the elites and the people." That's what he said. This is the fight. This is the fight here. The struggle here is between the elites and the people. Period. And that's true. And he also invoked Alexander Solzhenitsyn. He said our obligation is to live not by lies. And so I had not read that small essay by Solzhenitsyn, but I had someone mail it to me. And Solzhenitsyn, he said the first line of resistance. He wrote this while he was still in the Soviet Union. He had served like 10 years in the Gulag and got out. Wrote the Gulag Archipelago. But he wrote this short essay called "Live Not by Lies." You can find it online. And he said the most important thing to do is not participate in lies. Out of the gate, don't participate. If you're in a meeting where lies are being spun, get up and leave. Don't, by even your own mere presence, give any support to the lie. And so what we saw with J6 and the whole false narrative with the election was one big, massive, big lie. Everyone was being coerced to go along with it. And if you opposed it, and COVID was right there with it, you were purged, you were silenced, you were suppressed if you opposed the lie. Because in the empire of lies, like my old boss Ron Paul said, truth is treason in an empire of lies. And the corollary I would
Mhm.
add to that is that lies are loyalty. So if you're loyal to the lie and you help repeat the lie, you're rewarded. And we saw that all across media, entertainment, all across the political spectrum. If you go along with it, you're rewarded. But if you dare to speak the truth, you're suppressed. And we saw it during COVID, but you also saw that with the 2020 election. Same exact thing. Now they have lawfare
Oh, big
against
time.
anyone who dared open their mouths. Tina Peters right now serving a 9-year sentence in Colorado under the oppression of the leftists in the state of Colorado because she dared to oppose the election and dared to be a whistleblower about election fraud she saw. So the lawfare continues. That's why I'm working for Condemned USA. So I'm now Condemned USA was started by another J6er, Travis Evans, and was focused on helping us J6ers, which they did. They helped me when I was in prison, helped me get some money from my attorneys, but also other assistance. And they picked me up when I got out of prison. So I'm not working for them as their national spokesman. And the reason why I'm working for Condemned USA is because the lawfare continues. It's kind of like we're like the only version on the right of what the ACLU does on the left. So this lawfare is not going to stop. Unfortunately, anywhere the Democrats are in power or the uniparty is in power, they're going to use that power increasingly to try to directly suppress anyone in opposition. That's what we saw in 2020 and 2021 and 22. The gloves came off, and you saw the very Stalinistic system they were setting up.
Did you? Okay, so you were in. Your total time in prison was how long?
3 years.
3 years, and you say two of those
Yeah.
were in solitary.
No, one. Just
One.
over
All right.
1 year in solitary confinement. So when I was found guilty, I was in solitary. Then they took me to Lewisburg, where it was a J6 holding facility for like 20. There was like 25 of us together for the first time, and I can have fellowship with other J6ers like that. It was awesome. So I was there 2 months. That was pre-sentencing. So 2 months in pre-sentencing, I was out, under open sky, pretty nice
Mhm.
rec yard. So that was great. But then they took me back to. Then I went back. They took me into the DC jail for the first time, and there I was at the CTF for about a week for my sentencing. But as soon as I was sentenced to 18 years, they put me right in the hole in the DC solitary confinement in the DC jail, along with Kelly Meggs, my co-defendant. Right, we were both sentenced the same day, and boom, we were stuck in solitary confinement for 6 weeks. No excuse given, no reason given ever. I challenged it, so wrote out, why am I in here? Um, what's the reason? And they wrote back and said we have a valid reason. They wouldn't say what it was. so, so six
Is
weeks
that
more in
legal?
solitary. Well, that's the problem. Is
Is
our
that
system
legal
is
for
so
them to do
corrupted
that?
now? I don't think
Okay.
so. I mean,
All right.
our own State Department, all over the world, if any other country holds an American citizen in solitary confinement for extended periods of time, our State Department complains and accuses them of torture. That's what we do to other countries that do it to our citizens. But here, it's said to our citizens all the time. You know.
How were you treated when you weren't in solitary? What did you see? How were you treated by the guards, the staff
Oh, from day one.
overall?
I mean, even with solitary, a lot of them are veterans. From day one, I was treated very well. Most of them are Trump supporters. Most of them are coming from rural America and law enforcement backgrounds. Are very very pro Trump. A lot of them know who Oath Keepers was. In fact, I ran into one of them was actually a member of Oath Keepers.
Oh wow.
I won't tell you what
Wow.
facility, but we had correction officers as members.
Right.
Just we had like 30,000 cops as members of Oath Keepers, so it was pretty funny. But no, I was treated. I can say this. I can't think of. Well, I don't like being strip searched, and that did happen to me in Cumberland in my cell, which was I thought was a great invasion of privacy. They just came through as retribution for someone. I think someone. That's right. A guard was touching a piece of paper and overdosed on some kind of fentanyl that was on the paper because they'll smuggle drugs into prisons, sprayed on paper. That's what happens. So sometimes when that happens, they locked us down. All of us were locked down in the entire prison. This is FCI Cumberland. Then after that, they strip searched us. That was a violation, I think, a pretty serious violation.
Oh hell, we were hearing
Yeah.
from at least one other J6er that the attorneys were smuggling the drugs in.
Oh yeah. You mean across the system? Yes.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Here, look. The drug war is a complete failure. I saw people every single day deucing out because they were taking deuce stuff sprayed on the paper. It could be anything. Could be cockroach spray or all kinds of stuff. But these
Yeah.
guys, they'll get that, and they're falling out. They have to hit them with Narcan. They're overdosing all over all over the place every friggin' day. Yeah. So that's the thing. You're never going to keep drugs out of prisons, ever. You can't keep drugs out of prisons. What's that mean for the war on drugs in general? It's just no. It's not going to work.
The DEA hates the competition. That's the thing. That's the other. Don't get me started on the war on drugs.
Yeah, I mean, look,
That's
man.
it's ridiculous.
I've always been a libertarian. I believe you own your own body. If you want to, just like if you want to be an idiot with alcohol, go ahead. But I frankly think it should be all legal like it used to be, and treated as just like you treat a drinking problem. Prohibition didn't work for alcohol with absolute failure, and it's exactly the same thing, guys. For the war on drugs, you can't keep them out of the jails. How are you going to keep them out of people's homes? There's no way. It's impossible.
Right.
All you do is create a huge black
surprised-
market, make the cartels
Yes.
a lot of money, and the biggest cartel is actually the CIA.
Yep. I know. And this is the problem, I think. First of all, let me just say I'm surprised, I guess, that you were treated so. Why do you think you were treated well when we hear so many cases and a lot of the other people we've talked to from January 6th?
I don't think being held in solitary confinement for over a year. Hey, I was treated. I consider I was treated terrible too. But I wasn't beaten up.
Saying, yes.
I didn't get assaulted. So I think it might be that
racist attacks.
Well, some of the guys in DC jail, I think that's accurate. When they first got there, because of the demonization in the media of Oath Keepers and Proud Boys and all J6ers, I think a lot of the guards in the DC jail, from what I hear, a lot of them were from Africa, the blacks from Africa, and they had been told that these were a bunch of white supremacists, and so they were abusive to the guys at first in DC jail. I think that's accurate, but I wasn't there. I was in Alexandria, so I didn't experience that myself. But I think that's credible. I think that's true. Yeah. So, but then the guards finally realized this is all nonsense, right? They finally realized it was nonsense. And when I got to CTF, I was treated. The guards are doing their job. We're still being abused and put in solitary confinement as abuse. But I never experienced a guard that was directly hostile to me. That was not my experience. It didn't mean it didn't happen to other people. I'm not saying it didn't happen. So,
right.
It didn't happen to me. Right.
Do you have a few more minutes to talk with us? I need to do another quick breaky thing here, and then I want to get into some other things when we return here on the Daily Mojo.
The Daily Mojo.
E1 Guru says on the in the Rebel chat room, and I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. That was my imitation of
yeah, you did
Lee
good.
Greenwood.
Yeah.
Thank you. Even singing against the music that's not going well with it. And that's just it. The illusion of freedom that we have here in this country, as long as you don't color outside the lines anywhere. We need to have, obviously, the guardrails and all that and laws, because otherwise we're just a bunch of crazy people running around. But it is truly amazing that the illusion of freedom has been crafted so well in America, because we're not. Patrick G says another morning where Brad has a show that just pisses me off. I know.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
truly amazing. Talking with Stewart Rhodes from the Oath Keepers. Does the Oath Keepers still exist?
Yes and no. I mean, we had 40,000 members at our peak. They're still out there, but the organization that, the official organization, busted up after I got arrested. So, unfortunately, the guy who was my designated colonel, Colonel John Siemens, who was my designated VP, he had two strokes, and so he was taken out of commission, and things just kind of scattered from there. A lot of people just went to same as happened across the MAGA movement to us. People got afraid to associate. The suppression was very effective on some groups, and unfortunately on the Oath Keepers too. So yeah, they took
Well,
me out and
and
kind of scattered the rest of them. But they're still out there. I'm still figuring out what I'm going to do with it. We'll see what happens.
well, and the mainstream media was it's like the whole COVID. It was a hell of a marketing campaign to the point where it scared so many people into getting it. They had a hell of a marketing campaign against the Oath Keepers, against the Proud Boys, against anybody that was there in the Capitol on January 6th.
Continues to this
They
day.
spent billions. Yeah, it really does. And it's disturbing to me because if you scratch the surface at all, you see what a bunch of absolute horseshit it is, but that so
Right.
many people are so blinded and or ignorant that they can't even look the information up for themselves to figure out, okay, these people were railroaded. This was not an insurrection. The whole weapons. Did you take a weapon to DC
No, I
when you
left my
went?
weapon in my hotel room in Virginia. That's why I stayed in Virginia. So that's what we did every time we went to DC. We leave our guns in our hotel rooms. Same on that day. Same thing. Yeah. So they tried to make a big deal out of the fact that
Uh,
we had guns in our hotel rooms, but no, none of them came into DC.
and again, they just flat out lied. The press did. They just
Well, the
lied.
prosecutors lied, and the press
And
lied, and then members of Congress lied, and then the president lied. The so-called president. So yes,
yeah,
they all lied.
it is so we're in such a deep hole in this country, and we're just beginning. Do you have any faith that
Oh
the
yeah.
justice system can be ironed out?
Yes, I do. Because of what they did, they took the mask off in 2020, open suppression, all the mass purgings. We were purged off of every platform, even before the election in 2020. So 2020 is when the gloves came off. The deep state really amped up its attack on free speech, and it's the precursor was attack on anybody in opposition, criminal too. That's the lead up. That's what they continue to do. And all of this is about suppression, and that helped expose it. And so now we're in a much stronger position because of that and the awareness of the American people to what was done to try to stop President Trump. All of that became very clear, right? They built up, they couldn't put him in prison, unprecedented lawfare against a former president. They couldn't put him in prison,
Hmm.
state charges, federal charges, all of that. So they had to try to kill him, right? So that's what they finally resorted to. They couldn't get him just disqualified by the courts under the 14th Amendment, and they couldn't, put him in prison. Then the next fallback was to try to kill him. And when they did that, I mean, it's true that when man means for evil, God will use for good. Because when they tried all this, he only got stronger. And then when they tried to kill him, and he reacted like a man, he pumped his fist in the air. That's when he won the
Hmm.
election right there. So he just, in fact, my unit, all the guys cheered and put their fists in the air for him, and they saw that. And, black, Hispanic, and white, all of them were Trump supporters from that moment on. Absolutely.
And just thinking about that moment, you're right. It just is
Yeah.
absolutely
That's why
amazing.
it's tattooed on
Speaking
my
of
arm,
Trump,
right there.
let's
That's
see.
Trump with his
Oh
fist in the
wow,
air. So
cool.
I got that
That's
in prison.
very cool.
Yeah.
He got a
Yeah.
prison tat.
So you got a
Oh, I
prison.
do.
You
I
got
got
a hell of
several.
a prison tat, dude. that's how
Yeah.
the okay.
And,
When you
and
get a prison
it says
tat,
fight.
before I get into
It says
nice,
fight.
well, I
Yeah.
want to. How do you get a prison tat? I mean, is there like a legit dude with a tattoo gun, or is it still the old?
Yeah.
We've seen in
No.
movies with a needle
No.
where they're just taking
Handmade tattoo.
ballpoint painting.
Handmade tattoo gun.
Wow, that's
It's run just like
impressive.
a tattoo.
That's
It's
really
got a needle
impressive.
and everything. It's going pretty fast.
Wow.
It's buzzing along pretty good. Yeah.
All right, so Trump,
Human
he
ingenuity. You can't keep drugs out of prisons, and you
Yeah.
can't keep tattoo guns out of
Right.
prisons. It doesn't happen.
No, absolutely right.
Or hooch.
All
You
right,
want
so
you want alcohol in prison? You got
I was going to
alcohol.
say you probably get anything. All right, you
Yeah.
were commuted, right? Your sentence was commuted, as
Yes,
opposed
me
to
and
being.
there's 14
Explain
of
what the
us.
difference is.
Well,
All
a
right.
commutation means your term in prison's over, but you're still a convicted felon. You would, and in fact, in my case, they tried to put us through, it's like 18 months of 18 months of supervised release. That was later slapped down by Ed Martin, the new U.S. attorney, and for D.C. So that's a kind of a long story, but finally, our probation period was gotten rid of. So we're set free, but I'm still a felon. I'm 95% free. I'm a felon. I can't own guns. I can't vote here in Texas where I live. I got a nasty letter from the VA letting me know that because I was convicted of seditious conspiracy, that's considered to be the same as treason. So therefore, all of my disability payments were wiped out. I'm a service-connected disabled veteran. I had a parachuting accident and broke my back when I was in. So I got a spinal fusion and still rods in my back. But so I'm a disabled vet, right? So this letter says, oh no, all that's wiped away. No right to be buried in a veteran cemetery. No right to any kind of medical care. Um, all your disability payments are gone because you committed, what they consider treason. So that's what they did to us, and that's the problem. Like, I know Dominic Pizzola, Joe Biggs, another veteran, another airborne veteran. A lot of the guys are veterans, and we're being told by the VA we have no more benefits. So that's why we need a pardon.
Why?
All those reasons.
Why do you think? Why were they? Why was it? And who made the decision to commute as
Don't know.
opposed to pardon you?
I don't know.
Okay.
Obviously, someone in Trump's inner circle or on his staff advised that. But like I said, it's all the people. The 14 of us are either Oath Keepers or Proud Boys, and these are the ones who went to trial. These are the people who refused to plead guilty to a crime they didn't commit, which furthers the narrative, right? If you plead guilty to seditious conspiracy, you just admitted you were, committed. There really was a seditious conspiracy.
Right.
So they parade guys like that all over the media to say, "Oh, hey, look at this. Two more have confessed." So we didn't do that. We said, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to further the narrative. We're going to go to trial. We refused to turn on President Trump. The only person I could have turned on to save myself and gotten a lighter sentence or no prison time would have been President Trump. I'm just not going to do that. I'm loyal.
Let me
So
let me
that's
ask you
not
real
gonna
quick.
happen.
What was the? I just saw balloons. I want to make sure I'm not high.
I think you're not. I think
That's
when he
not
did
me,
the
man.
air
Okay.
when he did the air quotes, his phone. Yeah.
I know my hands aren't visible, but that's not
Yeah.
me. Trust me.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
Wow,
when you
that was-
did the air quotes, those balloons come
Okay.
across your screen.
Let's see if it happens again.
That was weird.
that was so funny, dude. I'm like, am I
I've
high?
got
What is going on?
I've got to quit shooting up this early in the morning before I talk to people. 'Cause,
You're like, what balloons?
okay,
I've seen
so-
balloons.
wow,
Oh wow.
that was
It's in your
really
head, man.
odd. So you've got to be pissed off, or are you, that you were commuted and not pardoned?
Well, sure. I think, in fact, I wrote it before January 20th. I wrote 3 pieces for Gateway Pundit arguing because I was worried about my brothers who were accused of violence. Right? I figured I'd get a pardon because I didn't even go inside, touch no one that day. But there were other guys accused of violence, and there was talk. I know I saw J.D. Vance once, on like 2 weeks before inauguration, saying that, oh, the people who were violent that day won't be pardoned. It's like, well, how do you know they were violent? Because they were accused of violence. So I wrote several different essays, and the bottom line is presumption of innocence. I think it was absolutely correct for President Trump to do a blanket pardoning of everyone, no matter what they were accused of or convicted of, because the whole system was so corrupt. None of us got a fair trial. None of us had due process, and so you were presumed innocent in this country until proven guilty by an impartial jury of your peers in a court where the judge is impartial and enforcing your rights. That didn't happen for any of us. So if you don't have a fair trial, you should be presumed still to be innocent. And anyone wants to be upset about that, they should blame the DOJ for not running constitutional trials. So that was my position, and still is, that President Trump was absolutely the right thing to do to pardon everyone because no one got due process. You should all be presumed innocent and put back in that position.
We've all seen. Well, I've seen. I know Ron's seen it. We've seen the video of the dude breaking windows with a 2x4. That guy obviously committed an act of violence. I don't know who he is.
Well, he can
but
make
I've seen
him
the
an
video.
act of, what is that? Is that violence, or is that just vandalism?
It's-
Really? What is that?
But
It's vandalism. It's not violence.
I can see that. Yeah, okay,
Yeah,
I can see that
hitting a
argument.
window is not an act of violence. It's an act of vandalism. Just to be clear.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
not trying to get on you about that, but just
No.
they ramped up the rhetoric. Oh, look at this! Here he is assaulting the window or whatever. Some guy's pissed off about the
Right.
election, breaks the friggin' window. I
Right.
mean, he could have been a provocateur, or he could have been just a sincere
Right.
pissed off patriot. I don't know. You
My
tell me.
point, yeah, that's my point, is that we don't know who he was. At least I don't.
Right.
And so we don't know why he was breaking the window. It could have been just to get video of somebody breaking a window. But I understand what you're saying. That's not violence. That's technically
Yeah.
that is vandalism.
Right.
But because words do matter, I totally agree with you. I'm trying to think of an example of somebody who was that we actually saw video of them committing an act of violence on another person, and I'm not sure I have. I probably have.
There's some guys who are fighting the cops, but the question has to be asked
Okay.
for them why. How do you get a bunch of normally extremely pro law enforcement people, Trump supporters? How do you
Right.
get them to fight the police? You have the police use excessive force
Exactly.
on women and kids, and that's what happened that day. So I know a lot of guys. Like I know
Right.
Robert Moore is an Army Ranger veteran. What pissed him off was watching flashbangs and CS grenades being thrown into a circle of Chinese Americans, anti-communist Americans, who were there with their women and children in the group. And he saw flashbangs and tear gas being thrown right in the middle of the women and children. It pissed him off. That's set him
Well,
off.
and we
Yeah.
interviewed Jeff McKellop,
Understandably.
and McKellop
Yeah.
had a little run in with a cop too.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, and
what
like
did he say?
McKellop
He
says, I
hit
think
the cop because the cop is hitting a woman, right? That was
well, that's
Ron,
the
was that what
thing
he
is
said?
that when you
Yeah.
well, or protecting against a cop hitting a woman. Yeah, I mean, I know,
Right.
I know other veterans that the cops were swinging at women with their clubs, and the guys were protecting them. Yeah.
And that's just it. And if they would release all of the video, which they still haven't for some unbeknownst reason,
Yeah.
we could see things, the timeline of events from A to Z, and know
Yeah, the
what
videos are all in a
precipitated what and all that.
Yeah, the videos are now all in a
Go ahead.
skiff in DC. You have to
Yeah.
have certain
Yeah.
access to get in there. Yeah. So I was talking to Steve Baker, one of the journalists, the guy that exposed the two lying police
I know
officers.
Steve. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, great guy. And that's what he was talking about. It's like, okay, he had to go into a skiff in DC, a special, holding place where we can have access to watch all the videos. It's ridiculous. The public should see right now, they should be putting out every friggin' second of every video in DC. Then you can trace all those guys, and McKellop spotted correctly, I think, these special teams out there. There are special teams of agitators in the crowd, and there are special teams of agitators among the police. I think that's absolutely correct. Okay, from what I've seen,
You think,
DC Metro in particular, that that's the history of the CIA, though. The CIA, through its early history, has always had police officers they recruit, like at LAPD, NYPD, DC Metro, other big agencies, to work for the CIA as well as be a police officer. They wear two hats. It's their history. So why would they not be doing it today? Of course, they're
The
doing it
bad
today.
part is that they're working for the CIA domestically, and that's a problem.
Well, sure.
Yeah.
There's a lot of bad problems. One, that's a false flag, right? They're being
Yeah.
told go in there and agitate and make it into something it's not, and we'll protect you. That's a
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's this is the yes, they wind up doing things in the same regime change, the same color revolution, same manipulation of crowds they're done overseas. They're now doing it domestically, and they have been for a long time. That's what's kind of sad or frustrating for me. Like there's a really good book out there called The Devil's Chessboard: History of Alan Dulles and the CIA shadow government. But that's a really good book. The last name of the author is Talbot. But it goes through that history. And this is a leftist writing this in 2015. I think it's a good indicator because he wrote this book 2015, pre-Trump, but he wrote it from the left, criticizing the history of the CIA. So go look at that, and you see, laid out there in fact what the CIA really is. It has always been its own shadow government from day one. That's what it does. So yes, it has a foreign policy it pursues all on its own, independent of whoever's in the White House, and it has a domestic policy it pursues, independent of whoever's in the White House. That's what it was doing on January 6th.
Where would you like to send people to get more information on your cause? Now, is there a website, something like that?
Yeah, they can go to condemnedusa.com. That's the organization I now work for. You can donate there. I encourage you to go donate and support the cause. You can become a monthly donor. For myself, I have Give, Send, Go. If folks want to help me with a little bit of, get my life back together again, they can go to givesendgo.com / GAF5B. So that's GAF5B, Golf Alpha Foxtrot 5 Bravo. That's my give, send, go. I appreciate a shot in the arm. Certainly is useful. All of us have been devastated.
Absolutely.
You know, all of us lost everything, our homes, our vehicles, I mean, everything. So that's true for all the J6ers that I know. All the guys went to prison. All the 14 who refused to bitch out and refused to turn on President Trump and went and faced the music, all of them in the same position. So I would encourage everyone to also go find their gives and goes and help them out too.
I appreciate your time this morning. I'm going to tell you what I've told everybody else that we've talked with about January 6th, that at some point in the future, in the next few months, I want to get you back on, not necessarily on the air, but just record all of your thoughts for a couple of hours, just uninterrupted, just so we have all this stuff on tape.
Yeah. Do a long form
for the future. Yes.
Sure.
Just so it's out there and it's available so that we can record it for posterity. So
yeah, I'm fine with doing that on video. That's fine.
Okay, good. That would be fabulous. I appreciate you. Did anything I missed that you want to cover real quickly? We've got about a minute.
Oh, there's a lot, but we don't have time. So just encourage people, don't get complacent. Don't think to yourself, oh, Trump's in, we won. I mean, that was a battle. We've taken the high ground. It's just trying to say when I first saw him on the morning I got out. We've taken the high ground, but now we got to push him into the sea. So we have to defeat the deep state, and it's not defeated yet. It's still there. It's been wounded, but it's going to come back, and it's going to come back hard. So I think it's important for us to push hard right now.
This is your Daily Mojo Extra.